Let us imagine a hidden link that unites two iconic women separated by 4 centuries. On the one hand, Lady Diana Spencer, the people's princess of the 20th century. On the other, Anne Boleyn, the influential yet tragic queen consort of Henry VIII in the 16th century. At first glance, they seem to share little beyond their fame and turbulent destinies within the monarchy. Yet a meticulous genealogical exploration reveals that Diana and Anne share blood. The Spencer family, from which Lady Diana descended, has deep roots in the British nobility, and turns out to be a distant branch of the Boleyn family. In this documentary, we will travel through time, from the Tudor era to the present day, to discover how these two branches of history intertwine and what this surprising family link truly means. The Spencer family: origins and legacy in the nobility. The Spencer family has held a prominent place in the British aristocracy for centuries. Their origins go back to the late Middle Ages. Their founder, Sir John Spencer, was already a wealthy landowner by the end of the 15th century. In fact, in 1508, the family built their great mansion of Althorpe, which has remained in Spencer hands for more than 5 centuries. Initially prosperous sheep farmers and landowners, the Spencers rose socially until they were ennobled. In 1603, Robert Spencer, heir to that family fortune, was created Baron Spencer of Wormleighton by King James I. From then onwards, the influence of the Spencers only grew. Their lineage became entwined with high-ranking titles such as the Earl of Sunderland, the Duke of Marlborough, and the Earl Spencer. Generation after generation, the Spencers remained well connected with the elite of Britain and the monarchy, often serving at court or allying themselves with other noble houses. A notable example was Lord Churchill, Duke of Marlborough, whose family joined with the Spencers in the 18th century. That branch produced Sir Winston Churchill, British Prime Minister in the 20th century. By the 20th century, the Spencers were recognized as one of the great aristocratic families of the country, proud of their lineage and history. In 1961, Lady Diana Spencer was born, daughter of Edward John Spencer, 8th Earl Spencer. Diana grew up within this family, surrounded by noble tradition. She spent her childhood at Althorpe House, the ancestral estate, and bore the style of lady as the daughter of an earl. Despite her relatively private youth, Diana was related to several aristocratic and royal dynasties of Europe. It is often remarked that her bloodline was even older than that of the British royal house itself. Indeed, when in 1981 Diana married Prince Charles, heir to the throne and eldest son of Queen Elizabeth II, the union symbolically represented the fusion of two illustrious lineages: the new Windsor dynasty of the 20th century with the ancient aristocratic stock of the Spencers. Diana thus became Princess of Wales, and soon a global figure. Yet unknown to her at the time, she also embodied a living link between the contemporary monarchy and the age of the Tudors. Anne Boleyn and the turbulent 16th century Tudors. To understand the other side of this connection, we must go back to the 16th century, at the height of the Tudor dynasty. There we find Anne Boleyn, a woman whose destiny would change the course of English history. Anne was born in the early 16th century, historians debate whether in 1501 or 1507, into the Boleyn family, ambitious aristocrats of Henry VIII's court. Intelligent and charismatic, Anne spent part of her youth at European courts and returned to England to serve as lady-in-waiting to Queen Catherine of Aragon. Henry VIII, a powerful monarch obsessed with securing a male heir, became infatuated with Anne. The king decided to annul his marriage to Catherine in order to marry Anne, defying the Pope and provoking a rupture with the Church of Rome. This decision unleashed the English Reformation, a religious and political revolution that shook the very foundations of the realm. In 1533, Anne Boleyn married Henry VIII and was crowned Queen Consort of England. Soon she gave birth to a daughter, Princess Elizabeth, the future Elizabeth I. Yet the king and the court had expected a son. and with each of Anne's failed pregnancies, the tension grew. The political climate of Tudor England was ruthless. Court intrigues, shifting alliances, and the relentless pressure to secure the royal succession created a perilous atmosphere. Anne, once admired, saw Henry VIII turn his attentions to another lady, Jane Seymour, while her enemies at court accused her of grave crimes. In 1536, after scarcely 3 years as queen, Anne Boleyn was arrested and charged with treason, adultery, and even incest, charges almost certainly false. She was subjected to a summary trial and found guilty. On the 19th of May, 1536, Anne mounted the scaffold at the Tower of London and was executed by beheading, marking a tragic end for Henry VIII's second wife. She was estimated to be between 29 and 35 years old. Her death shocked the court, but it also ensured that her daughter Elizabeth, once declared illegitimate, survived and would years later ascend the throne, becoming one of the greatest monarchs in British history. Anne Boleyn left behind a complex legacy. Her marriage to Henry VIII catalyzed the founding of the Church of England and defied the norms of her time. Although vilified after her downfall, she is now recognized as an influential figure who paved the way for reform and as the mother of the great Queen Elizabeth I. In the 16th century England in which Anne lived, it was a world of absolute monarchy, where the king's favor decided the fortune or ruin of noble families, and where matters of faith could spark wars and persecutions. In that context, Anne Boleyn's rise and fall epitomize the ambitions and dangers of the Tudor court. It is in this same world that we find the origin of the genealogical link that would, centuries later, reach the Spencer family and Lady Diana. An unexpected genealogical link, from the Boleyns to the Spencers. The blood connection between Anne Boleyn and Diana Spencer is established through Anne's elder sister, Mary Boleyn. Mary was also a lady-in-waiting at court, and is known to have been the mistress of King Henry VIII himself, years before Anne. From that extramarital relationship, and later from her marriage to William Carey, Mary had 2 acknowledged children, Catherine Carey and Henry Carey. Some historians have suggested that the true father of Catherine and Henry Carey may have been King Henry VIII, given the timing of their births and the royal favor they later received, although there is no conclusive evidence. Officially, these children bore the surname of their legal father, Carey, and what matters for our story is that they carried the blood of the Boleyns. Catherine Carey grew up close to the court of her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I, and married Sir Francis Knollys, a Protestant nobleman. This union integrated Boleyn blood into one of the prominent aristocratic families of Elizabethan England. Catherine and Francis Knollys had a numerous offspring of at least 14 children, thus weaving themselves into the fabric of 16th century nobility. One of their daughters was Lettice Knollys, granddaughter of Mary Boleyn. Lettice, born in 1543, was a notable figure of her time. She married the Earl of Essex, and later, in second nuptials, Robert Dudley, Earl of Leicester and favourite of Queen Elizabeth I. Through Lettice, the Boleyn bloodline continued in the high nobility during the late 16th century. The next key figure in this genealogy is Dorothy Devereux, daughter of Lettice Knollys and the Earl of Essex. Dorothy married Henry Percy, Earl of Northumberland, and her daughter Dorothy Percy in turn married Robert Sidney, Viscount Lisle. From Robert Sidney and Dorothy Percy was born Lady Dorothy Sidney at the beginning of the 17th century, who inherited through her maternal line all this ancestry descending from Mary Boleyn. It is at this point that the Boleyn lineage definitively crossed with the Spencer line. In 1639, Lady Dorothy Sidney, a distant descendant of Mary Boleyn, married Henry Spencer, 1st Earl of Sunderland. Henry Spencer was a member of the Spencer family and an important royalist noble during the English Civil War. His marriage to Dorothy Sidney meant that future Spencers would carry in their veins the blood of the Boleyns. From then on, each Earl of Sunderland and, later, each Earl Spencer would also be a descendant of Mary Boleyn, sister of Anne. Centuries later, this genealogical line reached Francis Burke-Roche, an Anglo-Irish aristocrat who, in 1954, married John Spencer, 8th Earl Spencer. Together, they became the parents of Lady Diana Spencer. This makes Diana, Princess of Wales, a direct, albeit distant, descendant of Mary Boleyn. In other words, Anne Boleyn is a distant aunt of Diana. Genealogists have calculated that Diana would be a 13th-degree descendant of Mary Boleyn, which makes Anne Boleyn her distant aunt. In summary, the same Spencer family from which Lady Diana came descends from Anne Boleyn's sister. This astonishing kinship, supported by genealogical trees from numerous reliable sources, shows us how Tudor history and that of the contemporary monarchy are literally connected by bonds of blood. Two eras connected, from the Tudors to the modern monarchy. The discovery of this kinship allows us to reflect on how 16th century England and 20th century England are linked. Anne Boleyn lived in an age of absolute monarchy, when the king wielded immense power over the lives of his nobles and subjects. The decisions of Henry VIII, to marry, to divorce, to execute a wife, could reconfigure the religion and politics of the nation in an instant. The Tudor court was a world of luxury and peril, where royal favor could elevate a family, as briefly happened with the Boleyns, or destroy it. By contrast, Lady Diana lived in the 20th century under the reign of Elizabeth II, in a constitutional monarchy where the sovereign no longer dictated the laws or the fate of the nobility. Yet the pressure of the institution was still present in other ways. Instead of secret court intrigues, Diana faced public scrutiny and the siege of the press. Instead of religious struggles, she dealt with the strict protocols and traditional expectations of the crown. Despite the distance in time, both women, Anne and Diana, endured the tensions of marrying into the crown. Anne saw her life cut short for failing to provide the longed-for male heir in the 16th century, and Diana saw her royal marriage collapse under media and personal pressures in the 20th. Each, in her own way, became both a tragic and a mythical figure in English history. The genealogical link between the Spencer family and Anne Boleyn serves as a symbolic bridge between these two worlds. It reminds us that history is not made of sealed compartments, but of an organic continuity. Blood of the Tudor dynasty still runs today in the veins of members of the modern royal family. Indeed, Diana's sons, Princes William and Harry, carry in their family tree this Boleyn heritage, connecting Henry VIII and his court with the monarchy of the 21st century. It is fascinating to realize how a seemingly remote event, such as Henry VIII's love for Anne Boleyn with all its dramatic consequences, ultimately intertwines with the life of a modern princess beloved by the people. Lady Diana and Anne Boleyn, each an emblem of her own time, share a bond of kinship that quite literally unites the Tudor past with the present British crown. Thus, the history of England takes on a poetic turn. The glory and tragedy of the Tudors find their echo in the glory and tragedy of Diana, and their family connection allows us to see the modern monarchy as heir not only to titles and thrones, but also to the lives and legacies of those who preceded it centuries ago. Thank you for joining us until the end of this video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to add something, please feel free to share it with us in the comments section. Give us a like and share the link with your friends and family so that they too can learn more about the connection between the Spencers and the Boleyn family. And stay tuned. In an upcoming video, we will explore another fascinating aspect of Lady Diana, her royal ancestors. We will discover how, in addition to descending from the Boleyns, she also had in her lineage several kings of England and of Europe. Thank you for following us, and if you have not yet subscribed, we invite you to do so and activate the notification bell as we regularly upload historical content that will interest you. See you in the next video.